Welcome back to Railbound. I'm Dear Darling, and enjoy the ride as we make connections and travel the world together, where it looks like last time we were doing the letter levels in World 6, where we're introduced to the new mechanic of switches on... Well, I don't even know how to describe it. Switches on the rails instead of off the rails. Okay, this is certainly interesting. I don't know why this is like my first thought. I don't think this is going to be helpful. So it's going to switch like that. I feel like you want to go here, but I don't know why. And then from here, what? I guess we do this, so then you overtake, and then it's 1 and 3, and then it kind of works. 1 comes down, 3 goes down, 2 goes down, and then 3 eventually comes down. How does that even work in the slightest? This was definitely just trial and improvement, really. Okay, so 1 takes a path of going around the circle and coming back down, and it can only do that because it hits this one first and it hits this one second, so it switches into position. And then 2 comes along to hit this to reset it so 1 can actually continue its path. 2 comes down, because 1 hit this, it goes around like this. It hits this one last, so it goes upwards and takes a longer path round to come down, where 3 hits it again after 1 hits it, so then 2 can come down and then 3 can come down. I see. So basically 2 resets the exit for 1, and 3 resets the exit for 2, and it just kind of works. These are definitely, I'm going to be 100% real with you. I am just guessing the answer to these ones, and it's kind of working. Like, I mean, I don't even know why we have, like, it's probably going to be something like this, and it's just going to somehow work out. If this works, if this is the solution, I'm going to lose my mind, because this was utter guesswork. Maybe? No way. I basically just connected each end to each end, and it just worked out. Okay, so what's going on here? Number 1 takes this path directly through. Oh, okay, we want 1 to take this path directly through, but we need 3 to hit both of these tracks, which is forced to do anyway. So 1 is a very forced move of taking this track, and it will go to the end. Number 2 prepares this, I think, for number 3, and resets it after number 1 and number 3 have gone over both of these. Well, actually, it's only really important to reset to this one. After number 3, number 1 hits it, number 2 hits it itself, and it comes back. But number 3 gets trapped because of the switch number 1 hit at the beginning. So number 3 is just on this roundabout way. Then number 3 needs to come over and trigger the exit condition for itself. Then it needs to unfree itself by going around again. Again and again. I see. Because all those other switches, those excess loops that 3 does, they're there because those are what trapped 3 in the first place to make sure it didn't collide with 2 and 1. Okay, like, I don't know how you're meant to logically work that out, because this seems impossible to logically work out. I'm telling you, I'm just guessing these answers, and it's working. Like, it just seems like do the most obvious thing with number 1, and then figure out what's going on afterwards with number 2. It's probably not going to be like this, though. Interestingly, the track goes like that. I mean, this feels like the most obvious thing for number 1 to do, but it might not be. They're going to collide like this, right? They do. Okay. I feel like number 1 has to do this. The alternative is number 1 goes in through like that, but it's got to get to the end eventually. Number 2 goes here, then maybe goes back on itself. Like this. And then it goes up and through. Okay. I guess we didn't even use that top switch. Again, complete guesswork. It's basically draw the most obvious path for number 1, which is going to be this. Then be like, number 2, you follow number 1. And then number 3, you do literally whatever you want. So number 1... Oh. Okay, so number 3, you can't... Oh, okay, interesting. This is actually a bit of a wrinkle. Number 3 has to go this way, because we can't have it go any other way. No, we can have it go back on itself like this. So it'll go like this, number 3 will come back, but then it gets stuck like this. But it has to go like this. So it can't go like that. It has to go like This is a death sentence, basically, for free. That's an intriguing idea. So we never want free to go up there in the first place, so we might as well just disconnect it entirely. And where does free go from here, then? Maybe number 1 doesn't travel like this. Maybe number 1 travels like this, then. Because that means free can go like this. Oh, but then you get trapped again. No, this doesn't really make sense to me. Unless we do this. That doesn't make sense. Number 3 immediately gets trapped. It feels like number 3 has to get out. Or number 3 has to follow this path out. And it will never want to go back in again, would it? Because this is a death sentence, as said before. Number 3 has to take this path out because it cannot go forward without something else hitting a button first, but then you'd have to somehow delay 3 before 3 could even move, which seems ridiculous, at the very least. So number 3 doesn't want to come back here unless it's a switch track, but which this can't be a switch track, but we can't do it this way around either because then number 3 doesn't go off. So number 3 can't go that way. It has to go like this way or something. No, it has to be like this. And then number 2 just has to delay time. We need another track though. I'm also not convinced that's enough time that number 2 is delaying. So, like, if we did this, I think it will crash. It will crash. There's not a lot of room to do things with. So what if we did this? Number 2 goes like this, and then joins on. That's delayed enough time, and we don't have enough track left for number 3 though to do something. I'm so dumb. I did not see there was an entire row here. I thought this row was blocked off. How do I do this every time? This entire time I was like, oh, number 3 is going to be utterly trapped if it goes this way. It absolutely is not. I'm just dumb. So we just need to delay time with number 3, essentially. What's the best way to do that? Sorry about that little bit of a pause as we're trying to figure out where number 3 goes. Oh, actually, I can't believe I'm so like blind to the like access room. That does mean that number 3 doesn't have to go off like that. Number 3 can like go around like this, like number 2 does, and then probably also do this. I think it might crash though. Oh, and then we do this, so then number 3 can get out onto number 2's track and do basically the same thing that number 2 does. Interesting. So it's basically using these circles to delay time. Number 2 does it once, number 3 does number 2's one and its own one. Right, I mean, this seems like an obvious thing to do. Can't wait to see how this messes up. Oh god. So we want... What do we want? Oh, this is actually kind of cool. If number 3 was number 1, then, you know, I think this would work rather well, but unfortunately that's 3, 1, 2. So we need to do this. So probably this will happen. Or you have to do something here. We can't do that. I'm just trying to ignore number 3 for now, and then we'll figure out where things need to go from here. Because I don't think we want you to go that way. Oh, you just crash. How can we get number 2 to follow number 1 in a very convenient way? This seems like what number 1 would do. And actually, number 2 can't just follow 1. But number 2 could probably do something like this and follow from number 3. But number 3 can't go like that because then it just goes to the end. So number 3 has to go something like this, right? But then you just crash. Wherever number 2 goes from now on, number 3 will also have to go unless the switches work out differently. Which is probably the more confusing part of this. We know number 3 can't go forward like this. Because 1, it will screw up number 1. But number 3 has to go to some... Maybe 3 follows on number 2 like this? I have a feeling this might collide though. Let's pretend it doesn't collide for a second. Oh, I guess probably we could do something like this. And then you would be forced to go that way. And then what? I don't know. You go, then number 2 would get stuck again. What if you... Oh god. So number 2 can go that way round. If we had more track to work with. Ah, but we can't have number 2 do that because that doesn't make sense. Maybe number 2 can go like this and it'll follow number 1? Ah, but that happens. So we need this to go somewhere. So it has number 1 and number 2, but I don't know where number 3 goes, and it's such a waste of track, I suppose, to do this. I don't think we could do this, could we? No. So maybe the concept is we do something like this, and we actually want them to go a different way. Confusing. And also doesn't really work. This kind of works. I mean, it gets number 1 out, and number 2 I think is the next one out. Oh, almost. And then we do this to get number 2 out. I just concerned if number 3 catches up to number 2 like this. But it might not do. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, then it just sort of works. Weird. That's an incredibly weird level. I don't know if that's the intended solution or anything, but I mean, the solution is a solution. And let's not look down on it just because it's a bit strange. It does feel like a lot of guesswork though. Not that it should be guesswork necessarily, but it feels like I'm guessing is what I mean to say. So this will probably not be good. Two takes too long. Oh, it looks like number 2 has to do this, so I guess number 1 would just instead... I don't know why I didn't make number 1 just do this to completely change things up. And then it's like number 2, how do you get out of here? By doing something like this? No, we need one more track. We kind of don't want number 2 to go that way, but there's not a lot of choice. That so almost works. If only number 2 was a little bit slower or number 1 was a bit faster. That's no good. Why do we want that to happen? This so almost works. So I guess maybe number 2 we want to go this way round? If it goes this way round, it still gets trapped. So it has to be this way round. There's nothing else that it can really do. But this always results in a collision, though. Oh no, it doesn't quite. Doesn't really result in a solution, though. I'm just sort of adding things randomly, seeing what happens. Right, that ends in a collision. So now we need number 1 to actually... get out. Oh no, that's fine. Number 2 gets out. Right, so we use the tracks to... I don't know, what did we even do here? Number 2 delays time. Then goes back where number 1 came. And number 1 doesn't get affected by this time delay. But number 2 does. While number 1 just goes basically directly to the exit. So it's the same principle again. Send number 1 directly to the exit. And then use the switches to delay time for number 2/number 3. To get to the end. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, this seems like the obvious thing to do. And then we no longer want to hit any of the switches. So what does this do? Everything gets hit too many times. So what does this do? No, we basically need everything to be hit twice. Either that or we do something funky like this and you go the other way around. And then from here what? We just hit blue. Okay, sure. I mean, that one, at least that one didn't feel like complete luck. We had a general idea what was going on, but it did very much feel like I was guiding my way through the dark. Right, okay. Seems difficult to avoid a collision. So number 3 hits that, but then it immediately goes out again. So can we delay enough time for number 2 to not hit number 1? Okay, sure. But actually has a very neat solution, surprisingly. It's very neat, it's very tidy, it's all very controlled. Wow. Why is this one so big? Wow, we don't have a lot of track to deal with. Seems like we want to do this, then send number 2 back. Or number 1 just goes to the end. Okay. Again, a very sort of nice solution. I don't know why everything's so spread out on this level, but... seems like a similar sort of thing. We want this to happen, then we want number 2 to do this. Let's just see what happens. They collide. Nice. I don't really know if we want to send number 1 backwards like this. Feels like it should be something like this, right? Well, the first one who goes through just gets to the end. Well, the second one needs to hit the switch. So number 1 will get through, hit the switch once. Number 2 will trap it, but then number 2 will go through the thing again to hit the switch again, and then go back through. Interesting. I don't know if I'm really good or if I am just lucking my way into the answer. Like, it's a surprising completion rate for this. This one has 4 subparts. Okay, we can't do that in this episode. We'll have to save that for next time. So, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Railbound. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares greatly appreciated. Socials down below, and I hope we can see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now. It's pretty good progress, to be honest.